So today we are going to implement an OTP login authentication system using Redis and Python. So Redis is an in-memory data structure store that is used as a database. It is also used for caching, and also it is also used for message broker. So we'll be using the Python flags library for this tutorial. So when you head over to their documentation here, you will see the instructions on how to install Redis on your machine. You're going to see all the various commands and everything over here. So we are going to be using the pip runtime to install our packages. So we're going to type pip3 install flask and also redis 2. So once you're done installing the packages, the next session we're going to discuss the various project structure for this login authentication system, right? So now let's move on to the next session where we'll talk about the project structure. So this is going to be our folder or project structure. So we're going to have the app.py, we're going to have the config.py, the requirement.txt, requirement.txt, and we're going to have our folders over here. So first we have our services folder, we have our retools folder, then we have our routes folder. Then the last one is the test folder, but that one is going to be optional for now. So I'm going to come here, increase the app.py. Then the next thing will be the config.py and the requirements.txt. Okay. Then now we're going to define our various directories here. So we're going to have the services. We're going to have the utils. No, there is a small mistake here, so I'm going to correct it. Yeah, utils. Okay. Then we're going to have the last one, which is the routes. Okay. So inside the routes, you're going to have a file in there. We'll name it routes.py. So the route we define will contain the logics for all the HTTP routes from flags. Then our services will define our business logics here. So I'm going to name it OTP service.py. Then inside the utils folder, we're going to create a new file called redis underscore client.py, which we're going to use to define our database connection. So inside our app.py, we're going to import, we're going to do from flask, import flask. Then we're going to do app is equal to flask. We are going to do if is equal to over here if our main application entry point is defined, we are going to run it. So we're going to do app.run. Then we're going to set the bug is equal to true. So there are a couple of to-dos here that we would have to do later on, but for now, let me just go to the import the route. Then we would have to register our blueprint here too. So that would be up to date. Register the blueprint. Okay. So over here, we need to paste the configuration settings for this app. Yeah, so we have we define our rate limit over here, we define our interval, we define our OTP expiration. Then at the bottom here, we'll come and define our Redis space, our Redis port, and our Redis DB. So now that we have this configuration here, we'll come over to our Redis underscore client file here. Then we'll come and import Redis. Then in the next line, we'll come and do from config import. We'll come and import our Redis code. We are gonna need that. I'm gonna import our Redis port. I'm gonna need that. Then we'll come and import our Redis DB. So once you have this here, we will come and create or declare new variable called Redis underscore client. Then we're gonna assign it to an instance of the Redis, an instance of the straight Redis interface. So this straight Redis here provides us with an interface to all the Redis commands. Yeah, and over here we would also map out the DB, which will be the Redis DB. And the last thing will be the code responses. Now so So over here there are a couple of things that we have to do. Right, so we would have to import a few libraries. We would have to import the time library from Python. Then we also have to come and import our Redis client. So we'll go inside the utils folder. So we'll do utils dot Redis client import Redis client. So the next thing we'll have to do will be to import our configuration settings for the application. So we'll do config import rate limit interval. Then the last thing will be the OTP expiration. So now we'll come and define a function called isRateLimited. So that function will write def isRateLimited. Yeah. So this function will take in one parameter. It will take in the phone number of the user. So we would have to pass in one parameter over there called phone number. So over here we'll come and add the phone number in the parentheses. Yeah. So we'll come and do phone yeah. So right now the next thing we'll have to do will be to define the current time, right? So we would have to get the current time in seconds. So we'll do current underscore time, and we'll send it to int of time dot time. So right now the next thing we'll have to do will be to construct our Redis key. So we're going to define a variable called Redis key and assign it to a string interpolation of login colon the phone number and colon the request. So this will be our Redis key, right? Now the next thing we'll have to do is to define or guess the current or guess the number of elements in the Redis list, right, on the Redis key. So we need to guess the number of elements that is associated with the Redis key. So the element will represent the timestamp. So we need to get all the elements that is found in the Redis key. So we'll declare a variable. We are going to declare a variable called time stamp. Then we'll assign it to. We're going to assign it to the Redis client.l range, which help us to retrieve all the elements in the key. Right. So the L range is Redis command. So we'll pass in the Redis key here. The first argument will be the Redis key. Then we'll pass in 0, then comma -1. So this will retrieve all the elements from start to end. Now the next thing we'll have to do will be to convert the retrieve element to an integer, right? So we're going to define a list comprehension over here. So what we have to do is to write timestamp, assign it to a list comprehension, so square brackets. Then we're going to do int ts. Then we're going to do for ts in timestamp. So this is going to give us all the elements represented in an integer. Yeah, so that's what it's going to do for us. So I'm going to get all the elements from the Redis key. Now the next thing we would have to do would be to filter out all the elements that falls within the rate limit interval. So this is going to be a logic that you're going to define, right, to get all the OTP requests, right, which will be the timestamp that falls within the rate limit interval. Timestamp, then assign it to a list comprehension. So I'm going to open our square brackets. Now we'll do ts for ts in timestamp if the current time, right, the current time minus ts is less than the rate limit interval. Right, so this is going to filter out all the recent OTP requests that have been made by the user, right? So that is what this list compression is doing. Yeah. So the next thing we'd have to do would be to reset the initial Redis key, right? So we're going to call the Redis client here and call the delete command. So over here, we're going to do, so over here, after filtering out the recent OTP requests, we're going to do Redis client dot delete. Then the delete will pass in the Redis key. So now the next thing we'd have to do would be to add all the recent valid timestamps in the cache. So I'm going to do for ts in valid timestamp colon, then we'll do redis client dot r push. So the r push will simply add values to our redis list. So over here we're going to pass in the valid timestamp in the as the arguments. So which will be ts. So right now the next thing we would have to do after adding all the recent OTP requests to the user, right? So initially we went to reset the cache, and after resetting the cache we are now going to re-add all the valid OTP requests. So we have to do redis.client. We have to do redis client.expire. Then we'll pass in the redis key. Then we'll do comma.
Then over here we'll come and pass the TTL. So the TTL will be the time to live, right? We're going to use the rate limit interval for the TTL. Then over here, line 18, this should not be there. So it should just be the redis key. So when you're done, the next thing we would have to do is to return the value for the is rate limited, right? So it can be true or false. So we'll do return length. So if the length of the valid or the filtered timestamp, right, is greater than or equal to the rates limits, which is this guy. So this guy, the value is 5. So if it is greater than or equal to 5, then we'll do it. So we'll have to do valid timestamp is greater than or equal to the rate limits. Yeah. So I'll put a comment over here that this will return user request matches or exceeds the rate limit. So now there are 5 more functions we would have to define here. So the next function I'm going to define will be the record OTP request. Yeah. So there's record OTP request. So that one is going to we're going to define the current time here. We're going to get the current redis key. Then the next thing we'll do here, so this is simply just going to add the record to the redis list over here with the arrow push. Then afterwards it's going to set the expiry based on the rate limits. So the next function we'll have to define over here will be the generate OTP. Right? So we're going to generate a 6-digit number. We're going to do def generate OTP. So we're going to import the random library. Then we'll say random dot runint. We're going to generate a number in between 100,000 then 999,999. Then the next functions you have to define will be the save OTP. So that one I'm going to call the Redis setx command. You're going to be the save OTP. We're going to do Redis client dot setx. So passing the Redis key here. So copy this guy. Carry the key here. Then the status over here takes in the name, the time, and the value. So the time will be the expiration. So you're going to let this be the expiration. We're going to call the OTP expiration in our config. And the last one will be the OTP, which will come from here. And the next function we'll have to call will be the phone number. And the next function we'll have to call will be the clear OTP. So that one we'll just call Redis client dot delete. So we'll delete the key from there. Okay, so this function has to return a string, right? So let's give it a variable. So you can give it a variable called OTP, right? So we'll come and return OTP. Yeah. And also we also have to use a different Redis key name for the OTP logics, right? Over here the key has to change to something else. It should not be the same as what we have here because this one is used for the rate limiting, right? So we want to use a different key for the OTP track or the OTP record differently. Yeah. So I'll change this to OTP code. Yeah. So this will change to OTP code. Okay. So the last function would have to write here will be the get OTP function. So that one after you have set the OTP in the new key, we also want to get a function that will help us to get the OTP here. So I'm going to do def get OTP. Then we're going to do a Redis client dot get. Yeah, we would have to pass the key in there. So I'll just copy this here. Okay. And the phone number will come from here. Alright, so the next thing we would have to, so we are done with defining our various services over here. So we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 functions that are going to, it's going to be doing specific tasks. So now the next thing we are going to do is to define our various routes, right? So you would have to import the blueprints class request and JSONify from Flask. Then you would also come and import the various functions that we define in our service. So you remember this function over here. which is the is limited function, and the Save OTP function. Yeah, yeah. And also we also had the get OTP function. So let me just rename the function to get stored OTP. Get stored OTP. Okay. So right now the next thing we have to do is to define our routes using the blueprint summary. So what you're going to do is to write OTP blueprint.route, and we'll pass in the path. So you're going to call this one, we're going to call this one request OTP. It's going to be a post method, so we'll have to define our methods in here. We'll do methods is equal to post. So now the next thing we have to do here is to get the request JSON. So we're going to do data is equal to request.json. So afterwards, we will have to extract the phone number from the.
So right now what we have to do is to get the phone number here. So I'm going to do phone number, then we are going to do data.get, then we'll do phone number. And now the next thing we have to do is to validate the phone number, right? So we're going to say if not phone number. So if the phone number is not passed, we're going to return an error. So we're going to do return JSON file here. Then we'll do this. Then we'll do error. Then we're going to pass in a sample error message for the user. So you're going to say phone number is required. We're going to pass 400. Okay. Then the next thing you're going to do is to call the is rate limited function that we had in our OTP service. So I'm going to do if is rate limited. Yeah, so in this case, if the user has reached his limit, right, on calling this endpoint, you're going to pass an error message that return JSON file. Then we'll do message. Then we'll say alright. Alright, so after we have done our validations here, the next thing we would have to do is to generate the OTP. So I'm going to do OTP is equal to generate OTP. We're going to call our function that we had. Then I'm going to call the save OTP here. So I'm going to do save OTP here. So that one takes in two parameters, if you remember. So the first one is the OTP and the second one is the phone number. Okay, let me do this. So now that we have this, the next thing we would have to do is to record the OTP or record the OTP request. So we're going to do record OTP request. So that one too takes in, let me check the name of the function will record OTP request. Okay, so I'm going to paste it here, then do this to here. So this takes in one parameter, as you can see. So I'm going to pass the argument over here. Phone number is equal to phone number. Yeah. So after we have generated the OTP, saved the OTP and recorded the request, we now have to return a message to the user. So we're going to do JSON file. We will do this. I will say message. I will say OTP successfully sent. Then we're going to pass it 200. Okay. So now we have to define our last endpoint here, which will be the verify OTP. So we're going to do OTP blueprint.route. I'm going to pass the path. So the path is going to be verify OTP. Then I'm going to pass in the methods. It's going to be a post. Then verify OTP. Okay, so over here, as usual, we need to get the request data. So I'm going to paste it in here in the validation of the phone number. So once we validate the phone number here, the next thing we'll have to do is to get the stored OTP, right? So over here I'm going to do stored OTP is equal to get stored OTP. Then here we're going to pass in the argument. So the argument will be the phone number. So once you have the stored OTP, we have to validate and check if the OTP exists, right? So we're gonna do if not stored OTP. Then I'm going to return a message. So once you're able to retrieve the OTP, you're going to validate the OTP, right, against the OTP that is coming from the request. Yeah, so you're going to say that if third OTP is equal to OTP, then it means that the user is valid. So we'll first clear the OTP that you have saved. So we'll pass in the phone number. Then afterwards, we're going to return the message. So if the OTP doesn't match the stored one, then we're going to do an else over here and say return invalid OTP. Okay, so we are almost coming to the end of the tutorial here. So in the next session or the final session, we're going to test these two endpoints on Postman. So I'll show you how we can test these endpoints, right, to see the scenarios being, experienced here. Okay, so there are a few corrections that you would have to correct over here, right? So make sure you have the at before the OTP blueprint here and same for year 2. Then you also have to pass the phone number in the is limited function like this. Yeah, so once you have this, you can choose to debug the API, right? So I'm going to debug the API here. I'll come here and choose run and debug. Yeah, so okay, so over here we'll head over to Postman to test the endpoints. So before we head over to Postman, you need to have your Redis instance running on your machine. So I have mine running over here. I'm using Docker. Then also you can decide to make use of Redis Insight to view the request that is being sent to your Redis instance here. So I'm going to fire the request at Postman. You're going to fire the request OTP endpoint here. I'll click on send. So you would have to enter or input your phone number over here. So click on send. So I'm going to step over. So if you should inspect the variables over here, you can see that our phone number shows here. If I should inspect the phone number variable, same for the data, it shows over here. So I'm going to resume. Yeah, so you can see the message over here, OTP successfully sent. So if I want to confirm that my Redis is keeping track of the request and the OTP code that we've defined over here, right? This one. So remember that this function is the one that will record all the requests that the user has sent to that endpoint to request for an OTP, right, on this Redis key. So I'm going to head over to the Redis Insight to track it. So I'll search for it. Yeah, and you can see the two Redis keys over here, right? So the first one is a list, and the second one stores the OTP code. So this is the OTP code that I have here. 389602. So right now we need to run the second endpoint, which will be the verify OTP endpoint. So we're going to create a new request in Postman. I'll copy this one, then I'll update the path to match this one. There's going to be a post, then the body we're going to pass the phone number and the OTP. So come and copy this one and put it in here, and just add the OTP value to it. So OTP, and I'll just come and copy the OTP that I have over here. This is the OTP code. The OTP is a 6-digit number that we generated. So I'll put that over here. So if I should run the endpoint, let me put a breakpoint. Okay, there's a breakpoint there. So we have the OTP here, we have the phone number here. Okay, something wasn't getting the 404. Let's find out. Okay, I think I might have. So let's start over again, right? Let me request a new OTP on this phone number. So let's see. I still couldn't find the OTP. That's weird. So let me do this over here. Okay. Let's see what happened here. Phone number OTP 055791. It matches what is here. So what's happening? None. Let me find out what is happening, then we'll continue. Sometimes when you're tired, you may not see the most slightest, things that may skip you. So the issue was because of the missing return statement over here, right? We had to return the OTP that we got from the cache. Yeah, so we'll just add a return over here. So I'm going to restart the API again. Alright, so I'm going to run the endpoint again. Let's generate a new one. So let's fire again and see. Yeah, so it was able to guess the OTP now. Nice. So guys, we have come to the end of this tutorial. It has been a long tutorial, but I hope you've learned something over here. So I'm going to leave you to keep on testing this endpoint to see if it works for you very well. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments and I will come and answer. So until then, thank you for watching. See you.